appreciate you being here. It'll take about one more minute and we'll get started. This is the DC Fast Award Acceptance Group. Uh, really excited about getting this started with everybody. Um, we've really put a lot of time and effort into this. Again, my name is Dave Willis. I'm here with Stephen Rice, who's going to be and Brian Phillips, who are both going to be presenting with me today. Brian Phillips is the supervisor over all of us. Our questions and answers will be handled by Robin Barrows. Um, all attendees for today's webinar have been muted. We will have time for question and answers at the end of the presentation. If you do have questions throughout the presentations, please enter them in the question and answers box down on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and we'll address them individually. If you have joined by telephone, you can hit *3, and that'll give us a little indicator that you have a question, and we'll unmute your line for that since you can't type in the chat. Again, Robin Barrows will be our moderator for the questions and answers session, and all questions from this webinar will be included on our website. We'll send that out also through email to all of our contacts, as well as the slides from the presentation today. Also, please remember that we are recording this webinar and it will be available. So let's get started. Again, my name is Dave Willis and we're with the Volkswagen team. Basically, the overview of the Volkswagen awards so far is that there were basically 12 million to school bus replacements, 6 million for transit buses, 4 million to on-road projects, and 1.8 million to off-road projects that included ferry repower projects. But what you're really interested in is $3.4 million into the DC Fast program. And with that, next slide. And with that, we have estimated that all of these projects together will eliminate 3.8 annual tons of NOx. That's only the first year. That's an equivalent of 51,000 passenger vehicles in that first year. Next slide. And some of you, since this is the awardee meeting, a lot of you might have questions about how we scored these and how we selected which projects were funded. Basically, the Volkswagen team for DC Fast ranked all the projects for an overall score and submitted those scores to the selection committee. Then the selection committee basically came up with 3 different recommendations, and they voted or chose to award the projects in these 3 manners. The first was the selection committee chose to award the top scoring project from each county that applied. So all across the state, that kind of dispersed the top level projects from each county. An additional county in the urban and suburban counties, when there was multiple applications from the same county. So if 4 projects from one county, we just chose the next highest scoring project. That recommendation was based on the average annual daily traffic data that we had and the probability of higher usage at those urban sites. And that was the reasoning behind doing the second in the urban suburban counties. And then last, the selection committee recommended and decided to partially fund one of the projects due to its cost. It's a very interesting project. They were doing 4 ports. It's a great project. It's just that we had limited funds, and they decided to only do 2 of the ports of that project. Um, Other than that, the highest scoring project we funded was an 89, scored an 89 out of 100, and that did include the REC bonus of 10 points. And the scoring method, I mean, we talked about that before, way back when we did our across the state in person. Um, but we were very happy with these projects that we got. Um, and next slide. As we move forward into the award acceptance process, we've gotten a little bit over half the award acceptances back from you guys. And this is actually supposed to say that tomorrow at 5 p.m. 8:20 is the deadline you have for that. And I have talked to some of you and I understand. And if you still can't make the date tomorrow, you definitely need to talk to me. Access into the grant management system, since I'm hoping you all already have my contact information. You should be slowly receiving your welcome to the grant management system. Those emails will come mainly from Brian as we process through those forms. If you hadn't got yours yet, don't worry about it, and you've submitted your forms. They're in the process. If you have not submitted your forms, please try to get them back to me as soon as possible for your access. Next slide. I can't iterate this enough at this point. Do not start any work on your project before your contract is signed by your organization and DEQ. That means you have a fully executed contract. When you get your contract assigned, then you send it back to us. They'll fully execute that, and there will be some electronic communication back with you that you have a fully executed contract. And at this point, I'm going to hand this over to Stephen Rice, and he's going to go through the grant management system with you. Hey, Stephen, you're muted.
There we go. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay, yes. The DAQ grant management system. So during preparation for phase 1, the Volkswagen Group determined that we would need a grant management system to better organize all the application information. At this point, you should have received an email with the access authorization form for the grant management system, just like Dave just said. In order to gain access to the grant management system, you must submit a completed access authorization form back to the program manager. So in regards to the form, they must be legible for staff to put the information in the system. We highly recommend using Adobe Reader to complete these forms. The NCID on the form must match the username on the form. All 3 allowable users for your organization must have the same organization on the form. All fields must be completed on the forms. And if you have any questions at any point of this process, you can contact the program manager. So phase 1 applications were submitted outside of the grant management system, and DAQ entered the application information into the system on behalf of the applicants. However, there are aspects of your application going forward that we will need you to submit in the system. This includes phase 1 required forms, invoices, and claim requests. These will all be processed through the grant management system. Also note that Phase 2 applications will be entered 100% into the grant management system. And you see below on the slide the grant management system portal URL. For the time being, the system is designed to work exclusively with Internet Explorer. We're going to see where the flexibility is on that, but for the time being, if you are trying to log into the GMS, you must use Internet Explorer. So there are a variety of training modules available to help your experience in the grant management system go as smooth as possible. In a moment, I will demonstrate the process of attaching documents in the system, and if need be, we can review parts of the Submit Applications module. Please make sure your email system does not block emails from the following address, which is sapact@ncdot.gov. All grant management system communications will be sent from this email address. So hopefully they don't end up in a spam folder or a blocked folder. Please make sure you give access to that email address. Also, information on the SAP support service team. They can be reached at 919-707-2208 or at the EBS support@ncdot.gov email address. This is between the hours of 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. So at this point, I'm going to transition to the grant management system. If I can find it. Okay, here we go. So to get into the system, this is where the address will take you. And again, here under user, you will use the NCID provided to you. And here, log in. We were having some issues with the portal earlier today, but it looks like everything is running smooth now. After logging into the grant management system, you will see the tile here, Division of Air Quality Grants. You must then click on that tile, which will open up a new window. Also, if you have any aspect of Internet Explorer which blocks pop-ups, make sure that you have that disabled for this website. There are a couple different new windows that will open during this process. I'll go ahead and expand that. So at this point, you will need your grant number on hand while in the grant management system. This is to reference your application. This is something that should have been provided to you, but if in any circumstance you need it, that's something that the grant manager should be able to provide. And here I will just bring up a test application to give you a sense of what you need to do for the attachments part of Phase 1. If we go to View Applications, again, I have a test application ready to go. And you will input your application ID into that field, again under Application ID, and hit Search. Your application will then be made available to you, and go ahead and click the blue hyperlink. So here you're going to see, again, this is a test application, but you will see all of the fields are filled in. This is something that should be done for you, but please, while you're in the system, review your application's information to make sure that we inputted everything accurately and completely. The system should not allow us to do anything other than that, but while you're in, please just review your application. If you scroll down to the bottom, you will see a table for attachments. In this test application, I have already loaded 3 attachments that would be relevant to the application. If you want to view any of the attachments after you have put them into the system, you can just click the hyperlink for that specific attachment. Here I just have a local map, which is something that many of you provided in your application. It's just a screenshot here, but there were other methods that maps were provided to us. Those would be very beneficial to include in the application or the attachments part of your application. I'll just close out the window. If you are trying to add an attachment, you will have this attachment button here that you simply click. This window will pop up where you put a description. And I have another invoice that I would like to add. So I add the description name. Under attachment type, I will put budget. And again, there are a variety of titles for these attachments. And then you're going to browse your local computer for the specific attachment you want. I have here the invoice that I desire to add. So once that is in the field, I'm going to attach. And up at the top, you see now that my second invoice is here. Again, if I want to review it, I could click it. But again, this is the process that you would use to add attachments to your application. There are training modules available that we might talk later today that will give you a more thorough walkthrough of the submittal process, and this does include how to put attachments onto your application, but that is the short, sweet version. If you have any issues with attachments, please contact the program manager. And again, these are a test environment, and there are specific naming conventions that we will need with your attachments. Please make sure to follow those naming conventions. I'm going to try to transition back to our presentation. Okay. So again, just a reminder, please do not start any work on your project before your contract is signed by your organization and DEQ. This is a very important thing that we will reiterate multiple times today. So now I will turn the presentation over to Brian Phillips to talk about the post-award aspects of Phase 1. Rahat, we might need to unmute Brian.
Yeah. Brian, you are unmuted, so you should be able to. Talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Stephen, all we see is a blank screen.
Okay.
There you go.
Sorry about that, everyone.
That's all right. All right. Thank you, Stephen. We do have some forms that are required after your award acceptance. These forms are required for our contract processing. There are five forms that we will have posted to our website following this webinar. The first one is a drug-free workplace statement form, and then we'll have a form about lobbying, another form about debarment. These are both federal forms. They're normally required for federal contracts. We are asking for these forms because our contracting staff is used to doing federal type contracts with us through DERA. So we want to make sure we have all the forms necessary just in case they need them. We already have them ready for them. We're also requiring a no overdue taxes form. And lastly, there's also a state certification conflict of interest form. Next slide, please. We have received a lot of questions about our timeline. Timeline's been in flux. We do thank you for waiting. We've all been waiting for a long time for these awards to come out, and we're all glad they finally did come out. So where we are right now, we're adding all our users to our grant management system. Most users have been added already. We still have a few to add, so hopefully we'll have those done before the end of September, probably before then. We'll, like I said, we'll be starting our contracting process. So once we receive the required forms from our grantees, we will start our contract processing with our financial services staff. We anticipate the contract processing period to be about 2 to 6 months. We know it's a long time. Bear with us. This is a new process for a lot of us at DEQ. So we're hoping to have most of those contracts completed before the end of the year. These contracts will be 2-year contracts. So your contracts will run from 2021 to 2022. And we also plan to receive your final invoices, reports, and photos that are required to us for reimbursement somewhere within 2021 and 2022, depending on how long it takes for you to complete your project. Next slide. We also plan to visit each of these sites. Once you have completed your site, contact your program manager. We'll find a time and date that's best for you to come to your site and view your equipment, take some pictures. We will follow all safety protocols. We know COVID-19 is very relevant right now and still may be relevant in the future. So we will follow all safety protocols while wearing face masks, practicing social distancing, and any other requirements that there may be at the time. Next slide, please. There are several reporting requirements for these. We have reporting requirements to the trustee, and we have asked the grantees to also reply reports to us. Specifically for DC fast charging projects, we're requiring a quarterly charger usage reports. We will have a template available on our website, and you will submit those reports through our grant management system. There's also a semi-annual report that we required are to send to the trustee, and we'll use your quarterly reports as part of our semi-annual reports. There's also a final report. If your project is complete, we'll have a template for your final reports on the website as well that we'll ask you to complete and also submit through the grant management system. Next slide, please. And lastly, remember, do not start any work on your project before your contract is fully executed. And that means it's signed by your organization and DEQ. Next slide, please. These are all our VW program contacts. And in particular, you guys are most concerned about the DC Fast Infrastructure Program. So Dave Willis will be your contact. We will have a level 2 RFP out later this year. And Stephen Rice will be the program manager for that program, and he will be the contact. We also have Robin Barrows, who does our VW outreach, and I am the person for any general questions about VW, the mitigation plan, and stuff like that. Next slide, please. Do we have any questions, Robin?
Yes, Brian, we have some that have not been answered already. We have one so far.
Okay.
Philip asks, where do we see the naming convention?
Okay, for your future files, the attachments, I'm assuming that you're talking about. There's going to be a drop down associated with each attachment that you have. And I'd like to go back to the KISS method where we keep it simple. And I'm definitely not calling anybody stupid, which is part of the KISS method. But if it's an invoice, name an invoice, put a date, invoice and a date. If it's something else going forward, pretty much the only things you'll be submitting are those the 5 forms and the invoices. So we'll just come up with a document that quickly says you should post it with this name. And since it's all going to be divided out into each of your actual applications, we don't have to track them the way we did before with your DCP 000 or whatever number with your big long names. So they don't have to quite be as complicated as we had before. So we shouldn't have as many issues as we did with that. And I'll go ahead and say the EOD today was my fault. We've had a couple different versions of this slide presentation going around, and I changed it on the wrong one. But the time to get back with me is tomorrow, end of day, so 8:20.
And Dave, I will say the note on the naming conventions, I was thinking of the original application process. If at this point we're not abiding by those lengthy names, then everyone on the presentation, please disregard what I said. I was referencing a previous version of applications.
Right. So since everything's going to be in the grant management system, I think it's going to be a little bit easier for you guys and a little bit definitely easier from a document management side for us. Um, and I guess Robin, if you could do the next question, please.
Yes, I will. I was waiting for you to take a breath. We have, thank you. We have another question that came in from Scott Ryan. He asks, is there a state contract in place with fast charge suppliers?
Yes, but I can get you that contract, that contract number. I don't have it right off the bat, so that'll be something we can put on the FAQ that we put on the website. But yes, there is.
I believe that link was referenced in the RFP itself.
It was.
He has a follow-up question, and he asks, are reimbursements based on a single total cost, or can they be reimbursed on a monthly or quarterly basis?
I believe in the RFP we said we would do up to 90% and then have a 10% holdback until we were able to go out and inspect the facility. So single, we can do after you get your work done and we have paid invoices, we can do one single check and do everything at one time. As long as you're submitting those invoices, we can pay those at that time and up to the 90%, and then we have to finalize it and then do the on-site inspections.
Questions?
Okay. And just a question, I meant the one of the questions that we already answered in chat. The enterprise business system is something the state's actually going to handle the majority of the grants that are done and administered by the state. So you should not have any problems accessing our system versus theirs. They all have a different web address, but they do use your NCID.
There'll be a specific tile for DAQ grants once you log into the EBS portal if you have other DOT related grants.
Yep.
Okay, I have some more questions here. Evan asks, should our applications already be loaded into the grant management system? And also for municipal sites, do we need to load contract forms for each application?
I'll take this one. Dave and Stephen have uploaded the information for everyone's application into the grant management system already. Like Stephen said, we encourage you once you log in to verify the information is correct. As for each multiple site, each application will have, you have to upload the documents for each application in particular by itself. So you have to do it multiple times if you have multiple applications. Any other questions, Robin?
I'm not seeing any coming in, Brian. I'd like to go over a couple of the ones that came in prior that might be germane to what we're talking about. When does the 2-year start to complete a project?
The 2-year cycle starts when your contract is fully executed. So the day you receive a fully executed contract signed by yourself and DEQ is when your clock starts.
Follow-on question. Do the signatures on the fully executed contract have to be wet signatures?
Our financial services staff is moving toward electronic signatures. As everybody knows, with COVID-19, a lot of us are remotely working. So we are working with that. There may be a few hiccups along the way with that, but the goal is hopefully everything will be electronically signed. Don't quote me on that, but that's our goal.
I'm not seeing any more questions coming in.
Right. If we're waiting for any more questions, I would just like to say the next thing that the majority of you will see from me is a host site agreement email coming out. We will be dating those from the 20th. So some of you I've already talked about host site agreements. Some of you have talked about potential issues with accepting awards. So that's going to be the next thing you'll see from me. If you have questions about that still, you can either give me a call or shoot me an email would probably be best for the rest of the afternoon. But I'll be working on that this afternoon and tomorrow.
And your host site agreement will be required for contract processing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that's a question that has just been asked. It says, does the site agreement need to be signed before the contract is put in place? That would be the
Your host site agreement will need to be signed 60 days from the 20th, basically from your acceptance. And we have a little bit of play with that, but we'll have to handle that on a case-by-case basis.
If you need additional time, you need to contact Dave to request a 30-day extension.
Exactly.
So another question we received ahead of time was, do I have to complete all the work, meaning purchasing the equipment and installing any charging infrastructure during the 2-year contract period?
Okay, so yes, please don't start any work prior to having a fully executed contract. That includes purchasing equipment and things of that nature. If you have a construction issue where you have to put conduit in the ground or you're going to have to tear up asphalt, it would be best to go ahead and put that conduit in the ground and eat the cost because you've already submitted quotes for that kind of cost. So sometimes it's better to do a little bit of work up front and not get reimbursed for it instead of having to eat the cost later down the road and tear up asphalt. But yeah, I mean, those cases should be few and far between. But don't do any work, don't purchase stuff. All your receipts, your paid invoices will have to have purchase, ship, receive dates after your fully awarded contract date. And that's very important. Can you think of any other way to say that, Brian?
No.
Okay. I mean, everything has to be dated after your fully executed contract.
Yep.
So another question that came in ahead of time was, how long does it take to get reimbursed once they submit the required information?
Right now, we're saying 30 days. So you submit your invoices, we'll process it on our side, then it goes to the financial people that process it.
Okay, another question that we got ahead of time is, are we allowed to choose a different vendor from our charging equipment that is different from what we submitted in our application and quote?
So quickly, yes, that is something that you can do. If your vendor didn't honor your price quotes and you'd like to shop that around, just remember we can only fund up to the amount you were awarded. So if your equipment was going to say be 35,000 for your charger, we would only be able to do up to 35,000. So yes, you can shop around, but for the most part, we've only had one vendor that I know of that said they wouldn't honor their price quotes.
Another question that came in ahead of time, if the authorized representative on the application has changed, what should they do?
Okay, well, first contact me. Then we'll more than likely have to get a new application, a revised application, not a new application, a revised application from you with the corrected authorized contact. The authorized contact is the person that's going to sign your contract with us. So we need to be pretty straightforward with that one.
And can they have more than one person complete an access authorization form?
Yes, for the EBS portal, you can have up to 3 contacts per business entity. So you can have a financial person, a authorized responsible person, and a project manager. Or you can call them whatever you want, but you can have up to 3.
And also, if you have a contractor that you want to have access to your application or submit invoices for you, you can have them have access, but they need to be listed under your organization on your form. Otherwise, they'll be rejected.
Right. So the way the EBS is set up, it's set up around business entities. So if they're doing work for you, they need to be listed under a grant management system, yes. So Scott Ryan knows this is EBS, and it is the grant management system. List things as business entities. So if you're having somebody outside your organization as a contractor do work for you, then they need to be listed under your business entity, your business name, basically.
We've gone over all the questions that we received before our webinar, and I believe we've gone over all the questions we've received during the webinar. Give it a couple more minutes for any other questions that might come in.
Yeah, I think we received one question about the cost share amounts. The question was if the project comes, costs change after installation, how does the cost share work? We are still working with our legal staff with that. We will post the answer to that question to our website.
Thank you, Brian.
And Brian, as people are continuing to think of questions, I will just go ahead and put the slide back. Here we go, our contact information. So again, at any point, if there are questions for the program manager, everyone here is listed. Phone number and email address.
And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be available. We'll notify you when it's available if you'd like to go through it again. And we can also make the slides available as well as needed.
Yep. I'd just like to say thank you to all our applicants. Thank you for bearing with us through this interesting time that we're in now. If you do have questions, definitely reach out to me or Steve or Brian. We'll definitely do everything in our power to get you the answer you need as quickly as possible. Just as a reminder, a quick reminder about the timeline. I will be getting those host site agreement letters out in the next couple of days. We'll continue to process through the access forms into the grant management system as they come in. I am still processing through the acceptance letters that you guys have sent in. If you do have questions after this, definitely reach out. Now's the time if you have questions.
And also to clarify, the welcome to the DAQ Enterprise Business System email will not come from me. I'll be CC'd on it. The email will actually come from the service account from the SAP team.
Yeah.
If your email does bounce back, I will forward the welcome email to you once I'm notified by the SAP team.
We've had another question come in while you gentlemen were talking from Lisa Poger. She asks, the amount of award per unit or KW output varied widely. Will any data be provided to explain those difference for planning for future deployments?
I guess the question would be, what kind of information would you like to see? It basically came down to what area you're in, what power you had quickly available. In the areas that had higher energy available, they were able to do higher kilowatts at about the same price. In some of the rural areas, it was hard for them to get to over 50 to 62 kilowatts of power into these chargers. So they had higher hurdles to get to a DC fast station installed. So it becomes cost prohibitive basically for some sites to install higher kilowatts. But yeah, we had a great range of projects, 50 to 200 kilowatts.
But the awarded amounts were actually based on what the applicant requested in their application. We fully funded, like Dave said, we fully funded each project except for one project that was partially funded.
Yes, and Lisa, if that doesn't quite answer your question, if you could just maybe re-clarify that in the Q&A, or maybe reach out to Brian or myself after the fact. Great.
And I just want to say we do have Lisa Pogger on here from Duke Energy. If any of you have questions about infrastructure, she'll be the person to answer that question. Sorry, Lisa.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a good thing this isn't the diesel one. I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. Oh, wait.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not seeing any more questions.
Okay. Does anyone want to see any more demonstrations in the grant management system while we have a little time left over?
Hey Lisa, I've unmuted you. If
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry to crash your webinar. Thank you for all the great information. I was just had that question on the pricing, but thank you for directing everyone to me for the infrastructure questions. I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, okay. I think we may actually finish a little early unless anyone has any other questions or would like to see any further details of our grant management system. Like Dave said, we do appreciate everyone participating in the webinar. If you do have questions, contact Dave. He should be your first contact. If you're unable to reach Dave, you can contact Stephen Rice or myself. We will be happy to find an answer for you. We are actually looking forward to see these projects get started and get completed and get some more EV infrastructure out in the state so our EV drivers can traverse the state. So we are really looking forward to this. Lisa, do you want to provide your contact information, or do you have an email that people can contact you if necessary?
Sure. Yeah, this system is new to me. I'm not used to this platform, but yes, it's lisa.poger, P as in Paul, OGER, at duke-energy.com. And I am the North Carolina project lead for our electric transportation efforts. So if I can't answer your question, I'll find somebody that can.
Okay, well, I guess that is it. I really appreciate everybody being here and taking time. Last chance for questions while we're here. But don't forget, I mean, we'll definitely answer any questions that you have. Just email me or give me a call, and I will be in contact with all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Have a good day.